The SADM B-54 looked like it was pulled straight out of an action movie. It was a nuclear device small enough to be carried between the legs of the soldier. To drop it, a soldier would parachute, swim, or even ski down to the target. This footage shows a member of the Green Light Special Ops Unit carrying the SADM B-54, one of the most unusual military devices ever invented during the Cold War. Had it been deployed, the weapon would have faced a long and treacherous trek toward its destination, all between the legs and on the back of a single man. During the Cold War, the United States military knew that they and their NATO allies were critically outmanned and outgunned compared to the Soviet Union. But the US had nuclear power, something their enemies lacked. And so, to balance the scales, mass nuclear retribution in case of militaristic action against the Allies loomed over the Soviet Union. But this plan had plenty of flaws. This was their only solid strategy if communist forces launched a limited non-nuclear attack. The President of the United States would have to choose between the defeat at the hands of a superior conventional army force or a nuclear exchange that would kill hundreds of millions of innocent civilians and rendering territories uninhabitable for decades. Within the nuclear war possibility, the Army began exploring different options for weapon delivery. One of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission's most secretive plans was their atomic demolition munitions, or ADM, pronounced ATOM. These ATOM devices were large and bulky and required several men to carry them with trucks and helicopters' aid. They were explicitly designed to collapse mountains to obstruct common invasion routes or make crater holes in valleys and open land. The Army also considered detonation in Allied land in case they needed to stop advancing forces walking along bridges or tunnels. If the US had to use nukes, it wanted them small. To make the weapons easier to carry around, the military began designing SADMs, or Special Atomic Demolition Munitions. The B-54 Special Atomic Demolition Munition was the Atomic Energy Commission's final project, and it entered the American arsenal in 1964. This nuclear device was small, at least compared to other nuke standards, and it could be carried between a soldier's legs. According to its manual, the B-54's maximum explosive yield was a little less than 1 kiloton, or 1,000 TNT tons. To detonate it, Special Forces units dubbed Green Light teams would be deployed in secret to enemy lines. The objective was to destroy essential infrastructure as well as war material. In the Green Light teams, Navy SEALs and Army Special Forces teams were given a week-long training to learn how to reach their targets by any means possible. In this footage, a training soldier parachutes down from an aircraft. Since he is trained in specialized scuba missions, he attempts to swim the bomb to its destination. One of the Special Forces team was instructed to ski with the weapon in the Bavarian Alps, though not without some difficulty. To receive the special SADM qualification, volunteer soldiers had to be screened through the Defense Department's personnel reliability tests to ensure they were trustworthy and mentally stable for the operation. Compared to other nuclear weapons, the bomb was compact and light. However, it was still heavy at 70 pounds, plus about 30 pounds of parachuting equipment. After landing, the soldiers would have to run with the nuke, but to achieve that was challenging and required at least 2 soldiers. According to Dan Dawson, a SADM engineer, quote, "To get the SADM backpacker across this open area in a hurry, 2 of us, one on each side, had to support him under his arms and trot with him across this open area. You could carry it, but you couldn't run with it." Another challenge the B-54 posed was the classic 2-man rule, which dictates that no individual service member can arm a nuclear weapon by himself. This rule had to be abolished for the Green Light teams in case one of the members was lost during the trek from the helicopter to the site where the bomb would be detonated. The SADM device could not be left alone under any circumstance. The possibility that it could fall into enemy hands was too much of a threat. But in the minutes leading up to the detonation, the bomb would be exposed and in a vulnerable position. So the team had to be as close to the device as possible until the last minute. This proximity meant the soldiers were in extreme danger, even at a relatively safe distance. The team knew this was likely a suicide mission. Danny Powers, a communications sergeant with the SADM team, said, quote, "We always figured we'd go through all these meticulous procedures for this device, set the timer for several hours to get away, but really when we turned that button, we were going to disappear." Even if the green light teams were still alive after the detonation, the odds of surviving were stacked against them. They would face being on enemy soil and risk being captured, or worse. Although the weapons would have only been deployed after a civilian evacuation, they still didn't sit well with other NATO allies. In particular, West Germany was understandably apprehensive about the idea of soldiers running around with small nuclear weapons around their territory. In the end, none of the SADM backpack bombs were ever used in 1984. After a description of the SADM program's military documents was uncovered, both the public and Congress reacted with shock and outrage. As the tensions built up for decades began to dwindle, the US Army began to recall the SADMs back to their territory. And although the Pentagon never gave an official reason for getting rid of them, they most likely viewed the SADM missions as unlikely to succeed in an actual war scenario. Today, most, if not all, of the potential backpacks missions could be undertaken by conventional war tactics. It's likely the world will not see a weapon like it ever again.